Welcome back to the Sacred Business Mastery podcast. I am so glad you're here, and we have a really beautiful, wonderful, creatively expressive guest. And today I have Kelly Lewis on the podcast, and I wanted to introduce her and bring her on the podcast because, in my mind, from knowing her, she is all about expansion. And in the month of March, in terms of numerology, we are in a three energy month. And it is all about creative expansion. And although some of us struggle with how to put ourselves out there creatively, what I love about Kelly is she has just put herself out there. So, Kelly is an incredibly inspiring entrepreneur. She is in the spa industry now, but she is fairly new over the past year. She is an entrepreneur, has an entrepreneurial spirit. She is the founder of Damesley. It is a boutique travel company for women. She's the author of Tell Her She Can't, and boy, that was a good book. And most recently, she is the proud owner and creator of the Wine Spa in the US, the US's first wine concept spa, and in Portland, Oregon. So, welcome, Kelly. I'm so glad you're here. And Kelly and I have actually worked together, and that's why I wanted to bring her on because her story about building a spa from the ground up with zero experience is quite the story. So, welcome, Kelly. I'm glad you're here.
Yay. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. And I honestly could not have done any of these things without your help. So,
It was definitely a team effort, and I think anybody who has built a spa or any business realizes that it's kind of better with a partner in some kind of capacity, whether it is like partnership or it's just like getting support in all those areas that we know that we need support. So I also wanted to share a little bit with our viewers in terms of numerology, and you are a ruling number seven. And I want to bring this up because the seven code in numerology is all about having fierce faith. And getting to know Kelly, I have seen that in her. And the thing about the seven, it's intuition, but it's also paired with logic. And you've done that so beautifully in this business. So tell me about the wine spa. Like, where did this concept come? Uh, and yeah, let's get started with that story.
yeah, it's a fun one. So I come from the travel industry. I own a women's tour company called Damesley, as you mentioned. And I was leading a group of ladies through Armenia and the Republic of Georgia when I kept coming across different wine spas. And I was sitting in a bathtub of red wine. And I thought to myself, this is so cool. I feel so fun. Like, this is such a unique experience. And I love being able to play with wine in a new capacity. Why does this not exist where I live? Why does it not exist in the US that I know of? And why does it not exist in Oregon specifically? Because we have such a wine rich backyard. And it was one of those crazy ideas that you just like put in your hat and you're like, I came back. I remember telling my coworker at Damesley, I was like, what if I opened a wine spa? And she was like, ha ha ha, that's a crazy idea, right? And I didn't actually intend to really do it, but I had that thought of like, what if I did, right? And then fast forward, through COVID, Portland, Oregon, it was, not a great time for us. We had a lot of protests, a lot of looting, a lot of businesses were closing, a lot of things were happening. And the Massage Envy that I used to go to closed at the start of 22.
Mm.
And when that closed, always in my head, I was like, man, if I was going to do a wine spa, like that would be the perfect location because I knew the layout of the space. And when it closed, and I just happened to be driving down the street and see the like for rent sign in the window. I called immediately because I was like, maybe this is the sign for me to actually make this happen. But I still didn't actually believe I was going to do it. Like, when you're just like you're on the treadmill, like you're on the steps, you're going.
And it's just kind of one thing, it's like one thing led to another thing. Like it wasn't like,
Totally,
but it was a bit serendipitous how
for
it all
sure.
kind of one thing came up after the next.
Yeah, like I called them and I said, I'm really interested in this space. And they were like, oh, that's great. We just got a bid to demo it. And I was like, don't demo it. Leave it exactly as it is. I need all the walls. Right. So, and then I went in. And then next thing I know, I'm talking to the realtor. Next thing I know, I'm talking to the contractor. Next thing I know, I'm asking my bank for a loan. Next thing I know, I get the loan. I mean, that whole it's a very condensed version of that process, which actually took a really long time. It took about 9 months to get the lease, 6 months to get the loan, and 18 months to open the space. So, but I mean, but then it's like, well, I guess I'm doing this, right? And I would go to bed and be like, am I nuts? Like I would talk to my husband because I have no spa experience, right? I have a lot of like entrepreneurial experience. My mom was a massage therapist my whole life growing up, but I have no business running a spa. So, but
But
I
I do
just,
but I do
yeah.
see a lot of people in this spa industry that have come from hospitality, like
Hmm.
whether it's like serving or whatever. So I think you had a really good foundation on like working with people, in that capacity. So you did, it wasn't like you were coming out of like not anything. So I think you
Totally.
going for you for
Yeah. And the more that I fell in love with vinotherapy and like researched it, the more I truly like started to not just believe in it, but like fully fully subscribe to it
yeah.
because it's an ancient wellness practice. Like it allegedly dates back to Cleopatra, right?
Mhm.
We know for sure the Romans used to bathe in wine. And it does have like very old and very extensive roots. So I loved the ancient aspect of it. I loved the ritual aspect of it. And when I got further into the business, through the demo, through the design, all that stuff, and I got to actually meet local winemakers and see that there's a ton of waste in the wine industry that I could then repurpose and upcycle. That's when it kind of all came together for me because I'm like, I'm supporting my local community. I'm upcycling what would have been waste anyway. I'm giving back to an ancient practice, but modernizing it with my own backyard. And so it all sort of came together for me in that moment.
And let's talk about venotherapy because I mean I've been in the industry over 30 years and it's not really that big of a niche, to be perfectly honest. And
Yeah,
so when you and I met, I was like, okay, so a lot of skincare lines will have some venotherapy, like the resveratrol is an ingredient that we see in just kind of little, a bottle here and there in a bigger line. But what I was so fascinating to me as an esthetician, being in the spa industry, is like the whole thing is this venotherapy concept. So can you share the venotherapy concept for our listeners?
absolutely. So, venotherapy harnesses the world's strongest natural antioxidant, which is grapeseed. So, everything that we do in our venotherapy spa involves some element of grape or vine or wine itself. So, we partnered with Caudalie, a French skincare brand, and all of their products involve resveratrol or viniferin or different extracts from grape and vine. Resveratrol comes from the stalk of a grape and it's really rich in anti-aging. Viniferin is great for skin brightening. It's 52 times more brightening than vitamin C. And I learned this from Caudalie because they flew out and trained our estheticians in how to do their signature spa services that they do in their spas in Marrakesh and Paris. So it kind of all came together. And what we know for sure is that grape and vine is like the strongest natural antioxidant, and that wine itself has a lot of antioxidant properties. So, for our wine soaks, we try to make it not just about wine, but about a full sensory experience. So, we have lights and jets, and we heat the temperature of the water to like 102-ish degrees so that it's warm. We add Epsom salts so that when you're in the bathtub of wine, you're not just soaking in wine, you're having like a
Like there's
full
actually, yeah,
experience.
like it actually is doing something for the skin. It's not just oh, this is cool. I do have to say
Yeah.
that with Caudalie, because when I was working with you, I did a deep dive into Caudalie. And for all of the spa owners and estheticians listening to this, because primarily is the audience, Caudalie isn't really seen a lot in spas in North America. And I did discover kind of through that research that it's because Caudalie is a really interesting concept in its own in France, and it's sold in pharmacies. And we're just not set up like that in North America. So the brand has to be kind of sell in different ways. So they're really picky about the spas that they do that they have their products in. Uh, but it is a beautiful line. It is really beautiful. And for me as an esthetician, whenever I come up against a new line, I'm always like super like, oh, I don't know, let's just see. They really have to prove a lot. And it proved a lot.
Yeah, I'm obsessed with them. I'm like a huge Caudalie fangirl, and we are really honored to be the only spa in Oregon that carries their products and that offers their services. So everything came together from retail to back bar to, spa esthetician services in that we can claim that we are the only dedicated wine spa. Well, number one, because we are, but
Yeah.
also because every single touch point, every single service that we offer involved some element of grapeborne vine. And yeah, so that's what sets us apart from really any other spa or experience.
And your whole guest experience is like from the moment they walk in to the moment they leave, it has that wine concept. Like you have brought in local wineries, you serve wine to clients. They get a complimentary glass of wine from the featured wine list. I know that for the month of March, for in honor of Women's Day on that we had on Saturday, that you are choosing women-owned vineyards, I believe it was. And then, so they go into the lounge, they have a little glass of wine, they have their treatment. The treatment is like head to toe, vinotherapy. I mean, it's just every aspect was thought about in that for a concept spa. So well done, well done. So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about um, the business and kind of setting this up because I know that people listening are always curious about startups because it's such a huge undertaking. And I think that for those people that aren't in the spa industry, they think it's like, oh, wow, it's going to be like, it's spa. How hard can it be? Because as a consumer, you're just on the front end of things. So what would you say were your biggest challenges in opening, like more so in the early stages of opening this? What would you, looking back on that, what would you say those challenges were?
Yeah. Is everything an answer? Everything was hard. I had to learn everything. And I think that it's really important to be like transparent on how things like this come across. So I have no problem sharing like exactly financially how this happened because that's the biggest barrier to entry is like figuring out your finances. For me, I grew a travel conference for 10 years called the Women's Travel Fest and I sold it. And the proceeds from the sale of that business was what allowed me to get an SBA loan through the Small Business Administration, which I went through Wells Fargo, and that took forever. I would much rather go through a community lender if I had to. Even still, I had to put my husband on the loan even though he had no financial contribution, he was just married to me. I had to put my mother on the loan, even though she had no financial contribution, but she had spa industry experience.
Right.
So, like, they made me jump through so many hoops. And that was really, really stressful. Just the whole process of not knowing whether or not we were going to be approved for the loan. And then knowing that while we wait, like our lives were basically suspended. We couldn't apply for a credit card. We couldn't close a credit card. We couldn't get arrested. Not that we were going to, but like you couldn't get pulled over. Like there were so many like limitations on our life while we were in limbo and not knowing if the financing was going to work. But at the same time, you have to take steps forward with the realtor and with the lease and with the construction company because it all needs to converge at the same time. So it's an incredible amount of faith that you have to just have that like it's going to work out, right? And I would just go to bed and be like, well, it's going to work out or it's not. And and I have maintained that attitude ever since. Like, well, it's going to work out or it's not, And I was just telling you, like, every 2 weeks when we make payroll, it's still really, really hard. And
Yeah,
we were
absolutely.
very lucky in that we opened in November, even though that seems like a weird time to open because we did almost $30,000 in gift card sales for Christmas. So we opened, we got a lot of press, we got the press machine moving before opening. The holidays were great. And then January was a lot of redemptions of those gift cards. Then we had Valentine's Day. So the first few months of our business has been kind of targeted around holidays. And now it's March. And we're like, okay, we're settling into what a normal groove will look like. but I had to learn absolutely everything. That's why I don't think that I could have done it without you,
Mm.
because I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know what towels to buy. I didn't know how many towel warmers to get. I mean, there's so
Well,
much that I had
even
to
like
learn.
even the towels, like you can get hand towels, but when we get the Costco hand towels, they're too fluffy, they're too thick, they hold too much water to do hot towel removal. So like those little tiny pieces of information are so critical are so critical that not kind of being in that place of not knowing what you don't know is really dangerous, right? Because you like
Totally.
had a lot on the line financially, your lives were on hold, and yeah, just having those gaps in information is very challenging. But and
Yeah,
you also coach other women in the travel industry. So I think you probably came to this brand new business, brand new idea, um, already having the understanding like I already know what I know I don't know what I don't know, so I'm going to outsource that information because you do the same thing in your industry.
absolutely. It was a no-brainer for me. I Googled like spa coach. And when I found you, I remember being on the phone call with you and you're like, okay, well, these are the things that I offer. And I'm like, okay, but I need like everything in between that too. And you're like, okay, well, here's the everything thought, like here's the everything container. And it was a no-brainer for me because I know how long it takes to set things up, right? And, I also knew that like I very quickly needed to shift into finding my dream team. And this again is where you have to have super strong faith. Like I fully believe that your resonance attracts the people that you need. And so I knew as I was going through the interview process, like that I would just find my people. And I'm so lucky in that I did. Like I hired some truly spectacular humans. And the first 3 months of the business, the hardest part of that has been figuring out like who fits with the vibe, with the long-term vision, with their own personalities and their own needs. How do we make the hours make sense? How do we make the staffing make sense? And that's the part that keeps me up at night because, worst case scenario, the business fails. I declare bankruptcy, I cry, it
Yeah,
hurts, but
we'll
then
get
it's
over
over. I'm not going to jail, I'm not dying,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But I do take the fact that I have people's lives, people's families, their income, the responsibility of that. I take that very seriously, and like that's really what keeps me up at night. But all that being said, I knew I needed to find people. So I knew I needed someone to help me train those people and to present to them not just oh, I'm a traveler and I have this idea for a wine spa, but like this is the vibe and the style and what we are building,
Yeah.
bigger vision.
Yeah. And I think that's really important to make note of is that, somebody that isn't in the spa industry coming in and trying to create a strong team. And I think most spa and salon owners would agree that that's the tough part because as they're professionals, they're service providers, they've got specific skill sets and they need leadership that understands those skill sets, and sometimes it can be really difficult to lead a team if you are not an esthetician or a massage therapist. But I think that what really helped your situation is that you are just like you're such a heart-centered person, and you live your life from your heart, like all of it. And so, like you said about that resonance piece, I think that that piece was just resonating the right people. And then plus you had the system and structures to kind of back that piece up. But for sure, hiring the team is such a huge undertaking. And then it feels like such a massive responsibility. So I get like my next question was to ask you about the changes in terms of leadership, like going from solopreneur to a team lead. How has that been for you? Like
Yeah.
what's like how does that feel? How do you manage it?
Um, it is it is amazing. It is a gift. I am lucky that like I am obsessed with my spa and my team. Like I never find myself not wanting to go in, which is great because I'm there every single day. Um, But that's for sure a shift from being, having a lot of like time freedom as an entrepreneur and not really having anyone else that's gonna kind of like be reliant on me,
Mhm.
to having a whole team of people that need me constantly. And I think, it's called on me. It's like I thought in my head, maybe, the vision of being a brick and mortar entrepreneur is like being very hands off, because before I was in travel, I was a bartender and I was a bar manager in New York City, and the owner like never came to the
Like
bar.
total hands off
Never.
and
I
absent
think
owner.
once a year, but she trusted me to like hold it down and make, manage the team and manage the whole thing.
Mhm.
And I did. So I was like, wow, that would be so nice if I just never could do that. But like that is never going to happen. I don't know that that's going to happen for me like ever in this life. Not in the first year, maybe not in the first three, maybe not ever.
Mhm.
So knowing that like I am directly responsible for how the team functions and how the business operates with team, like my presence is required for that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And, I think that like it is a lot of responsibility when you think about it, because like if stuff's going wrong in the spot, even if like me physically being there is not going to change that,
Mhm.
me being there changes that, because we all feel like we're in it together. We're going to figure it out together. Case in point, yesterday, we had a whole stacked day of couples, and two massage therapists were booked, couples all day long. And one of my therapists got in an accident, in a car accident on her way to work. And so then we were like, well, now what are we going to do? Because we have this entire day that's totally booked with couples. We need two therapists. So, like, how are we going to figure it out? Me being in the spa is not going to like change that, right? Because I'm on my phone texting every single therapist that I know, trying to figure it out. But also, like, I know me being there and all of us feeling that shared burden is like, it does matter.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. And I think, your team sees you, like when you're in the trenches with your team, there's a level of respect that as an owner you get because like you said, we're in it together. Like I'm not a service provider, otherwise I'd hop in there and help out. But
yeah.
just
But I
know.
also think that's a good thing. And I only, when I started connecting with other spa professionals, I would say like, do you think that I should become a provider? And they're like, well, no, because that's not your energy. And also, like, you can't jump in and save the day. I can't be a martyr for my spa. I can't do a massage. I cannot like work for other people. Like, so it does create a boundary in that like I can help as much as I can help, but I can't actually do it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know.
And that actually does it protects your energy in a big way as you're the mama of that business. Like ultimately everything ends with you. So I do know that a lot of times with spa owners, because they are service providers, they stay too long in the treatment room. They like it's kind of a pull and a draw for them, and it takes them away from the role that they are actually supposed to be responsible for, and that is those the high level aspects of running a business and being able to pop in to troubleshoot when it's needed. And I do know that like though it will get to a point where you'll have a spa manager and you can be a little bit more hands off, but I just think that that's also who you are. Again, like you're a super heart-centered entrepreneur and your heart is connected to that business no matter what. It's not a business that you opened up just to like, all right, we're just gonna do this as an investment. Like it was like I'm all in heart, body, mind, and soul. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean it was like it's for me it's all or nothing.
Hmm.
Right? So and I think that's how I show up just in general. And um yeah, I think we started this conversation talking about having faith, and like I do have this crazy faith with the universe, like from the smallest to the biggest. Like I know that I'm gonna always get good parking, even on like Costco on a Saturday afternoon. Like it's gonna be fine. I'm gonna get good parking. And I have to adapt that same expectation with success in business. And it tests me. Like it tests me every single week. And in the beginning, like I was not sleeping because I was so nervous, because when you look at like the debt and the loans and the risk of what it takes to do something like this. It's really easy to get in that space of being like, how does it ever make sense? But I just have to shift myself every single time I find myself in that place, which is all the time. I have to shift to being like, nope, I'm going to get a good parking space and I'm going to make this business work. Like, I just have to, like, Delulu is the Salulu, you have to really like just believe it. And so far, it's working. And I know that my team understands what it is like to build a business. And it's kind of a cool like crash course they're getting because I'm so transparent with the numbers and with what's happening and what's the goal for the business and where are we going. And so they're in it for the ride. And like they've been wonderful when it comes to saying, okay, well, this week we don't need everyone here, right? We need to cut hours at the front because there's no point in having two people here when we have one massage.
Yeah.
And they are very like understanding of that and take a lot of initiative and being like, all right, well, let's just go home for the day. Like they're awesome.
Yeah.
And I don't think that I could do this without them because I know that just my own schedule, like I also can't be at the front all day, every day. So
No, not at all. Like I said, like your job is the upper level stuff, right? Like you just cannot be stuck in the minutia of the business. Tell me about, let's talk a little bit about visibility because we're in the month of March. The March energy of the three energy of March is all about um, creative expression, creative emotional expression. And so, what listeners are going to be hearing a lot in my social media is talking about marketing because that three energy actually shows up in the form of marketing a lot because it's about being visible, but it's also about like how we're able to be emotionally expressive is equal to what where our can go. So on the topic of marketing, like I know I've been watching you and you've your PR train is rolling. It's I love seeing what's coming out. Tell me about how that's been working, like what's been going on, what's been the strategy for your marketing, and yeah, tell me what's been happening.
yeah, so because we have such a visual business, right? We soak in wine, we put grapes on our face. Like we
Mhm.
have very like fun, different imagery. We've been doing a lot of influencer collaborations. We've been having a lot of local influencers come and review the spa. We have some journalists coming to review the spa. At first, we've been on local news many times. I think that one of my biggest like strengths is that I connected with our local, they're called Travel Portland, our local, um, it's not a chamber of commerce. It's like
It's like a
the
networking.
organization that promotes tourism to your destination,
Okay.
right? A DMO. So I connected with Travel Portland very early, and now I've connected with Travel Oregon. And so just telling them, like, hey, I'm building something that's really cool, not just for Portland, but for the United States.
Yeah.
Like, this does not exist. This is something that's unique and different and fun. And they have been so supportive in like promoting that on their own channels and referring press to me, bringing media into town and paying full price for it. Like, just really being super supportive and amazing. So that's been very helpful. One of my best friends owns a PR company in New York City. And so they have been doing PR for us since before we opened. So they do a lot of the like influencer vetting, and a lot of the national press. We actually just got some very big news that I'm happy to share with you here because
Ooh.
by the time this episode comes out, it will be public knowledge. But we were just told that Time Magazine named us one of the 100 greatest places in the world to visit in 2025. So
Wow.
that is, I know. I, yeah, I am like, I'm so blown away by like that distinguishment and what that means and being such a like a baby. Like we're 3 months old. Like
Yeah.
we just opened, but we are bringing something totally unique to North America, um and and an experience you can't have elsewhere. And so it's just, yeah, I am so
That's a wow.
thankful, yeah, for
Yeah.
that.
So I think the other thing that I've noticed is that in terms of your marketing, like you don't lift your foot off the gas.
Yeah,
like
never.
your social media, consistently posting, reposting your influencers, posting them to stories, um, and just, you really want to be, you almost want to hear people saying, "I see you everywhere," like,
Yes,
and
totally.
that's the thing with PR and marketing, and I think a lot of spas struggle with because most of the owners are service providers become owners and they struggle with visibility. They'd rather be in the just kind of just leave me in the treatment room and let me do my thing. But we cannot sit and be our town's most best kept secret, right? And so it's just so important that we like. I know marketing feels heavy sometimes, and it feels like a lot of work, and it's like you're on a hamster wheel. Well, you kind of are, but that's really what it takes is just keep your foot on the gas with networking. I also saw that you recently, was it just this past weekend or the weekend before that did you host that like a travel event? Tell me a little bit about.
Yeah, I hosted three. I was asked to be the MC of three events put on by Travel Oregon, my state's destination marketing organization. And that was like amazing because I was sitting next to like some really incredible Portland entrepreneurs like the CEO of Salt and Straw, a very famous ice cream chain that was started here. And so I feel like I'm meeting people in all these places. And then when I say, oh, I created the wine spa, a lot of times people are like, oh, you came up on my For You page, or like, oh, I think I saw you guys on TikTok, or oh, I saw you on Instagram. And I'm like, yes, it's working, right? Because I also like nobody likes to post on social media. It feels like a job to me. I don't love it. I don't know that I'm doing it, amazingly all the time, but I'm doing it consistently. And what I started doing is just playing with it. Like today, I posted a silly reel, that's like a trend. Like, you okay, sis? Yes, I'm bathing in wine. And then my caption was like, not too shabby for Rachel. Like, it's a Friends joke.
Yeah.
If you really like the show Friends. And I don't, it's not so serious. And so I think I'm just trying to like play with, yes, having beautiful imagery. We have a designer that makes gorgeous imagery for us, but also just like having fun and showcasing the experience of wine in a different capacity. And yeah, it makes it more fun for me too.
Well, and the other connection that I made was with your marketing is that by, being an MC at an event that is doesn't kind of it is related to the spa, but not really. It's given you a huge amount of exposure, you personally as a leader. And so, when I talk to business owners about networking, the first thing they think about is like, I gotta join my local chamber. Gross. No, that's exactly not what I'm suggesting. When I say networking, and I wish I could come up with a better word that doesn't feel like the gross old traditional networking. But it's like meeting new people and then just sharing what you happen to be doing as a career. That's really all this networking is. And so I love that you're getting yourself out there, you're cross promoting, and kind of just literally getting in all the places. That's
Yeah, and I do think like joining your local chamber is a good way of starting that. For me, I feel kind of like I'm being thrust into like the Portland entrepreneurial circle,
Mm.
which I'm here for, right? And but I never wanted to feel inauthentic. Like I'm gonna just keep showing up, even on stage. Like Kim, the CEO of Salt and Straw, being the sweetie that she is, she was kind of like, Kelly, you need to tell people about what you're doing at the wine spa, right? And I'm just so like flippant and silly. She was like, tell people what you're doing. And I'm like, well, I opened a wine spa where you can sit in wine while drinking wine and we put grapes on our face. Like, just being like silly about it because that's my personality. And then I went home and I was like, oh, I really should have talked about the antioxidants and like, I should have been more serious in that moment. But I trust that like people will pick up on that vibe and Google it and look at our website, look at our social to speak to that curiosity. And I don't have to not be me in that process.
Exactly. And that's a point to like anybody with their marketing is like, don't, it doesn't have to be. It's like you were saying, variety, fun, try different things. Like it's an emotional expression, but we just have to do it for work. So if we can make it a little bit more fun and enjoyable for us to do, more interesting for us to do, then we at least get it done, right? And it's not postponing it or procrastinating because we're like, oh, I don't know, I don't know. It's just get out
Totally.
there, just do it.
I'm just trying to have fun in my life and in my business. And like even the names of our services, we call like our soak and massage the Pinot Dreams. We have a treatment where, that's a soak and a scrub and a facial called Que Sera. Like we're trying to play with wine because wine specifically, I think, can be a little bit pretentious and people there's a barrier to entry. People feel like they don't understand wine or they're not good at knowing what good wine is. And I think all of that's BS, honestly. So I just wanted to like have a playful, fun business where like our vibe is that. And so I just remind myself of that. Like when I'm posting, it's like, I don't have to be stuffy. My brand voice doesn't have to not be my voice. Like it can be all the same. And I think, I don't know. I just always think we hear really broy things like funnels and, you know, brand voice and like it's overwhelming and you feel like you can't be you and I don't think that's true.
Yeah, like I do feel like we need to like rename stuff. Like a word that I would love to find a different term for, like a word for, is discipline. Like we all have like discipline just sounds meh. I don't but in truth, freedom is through discipline and it's not doesn't have to be a bad thing. It's just like if I do this, I get that. So I totally get what you mean with like marketing can feel a lot like that old bro marketing and in like totally inauthentic. And I love what you said about, the wine industry can kind of be a little bit pretentious. So can the spa industry. So I really appreciate that, you're cracking some things open. You are disrupting two different industries in one business where it's a beautiful space. It's very elegant, it's very elevated, but it's also like it's not pretentious. So I love that you brought that up in terms of barrier to entry and just feeling like, oh, I don't belong. And how you've brought your own energy and your own vibe to that to make it so much more welcoming for everybody. It's
Yeah,
beautiful.
thank you. I
Love
know. And I also do feel like there is some little voice in our heads that tells us because we haven't done it, we can't do it, right? But like you don't actually ever know what you're doing until you do it. And even when you do it, you're like, am I doing it right? I mean, like and then you just refine how you're doing it, right? So I think we just have to take that leap and I know that it's scary. Trust me. Like I understand how scary it is. But it is also it's been the best thing that I think I've ever done. And I've done a lot of really cool things. So I just feel like I'm so invested in the wine spa and in my baby and in the vision of this company, not just being a one location spa, but like really building a national brand of spas.
Well,
I
and that
don't
kind of
know.
and that
Yeah.
kind of help happen serendipitously in a way too about the name. So
Oh yeah.
you were originally the Portland, was it Portland Wine Spa?
Willamette
No,
Wine Spa.
Willamette Wine Spa. Yeah, Willamette
Hmm.
Wine Spa. And then you got a little nasty gram.
Cease and desist. Yeah, let's just call it what it is. Yeah, a big wine brand here told me that they trademarked the name Willamette, which is
It's
also BS because it's an indigenous name and it's the name of a valley and it's the name of a place and it's the name of a river. It's the name of a lot of things. So I didn't even know it was trademarkable. And then it was like you have to decide like, well, am I going to fight this? Am I going to fight this? Am I going to like make this a big stink because I want to because it's stupid or am I just going to pivot? And like this was like 4 or 5 days before we were going to open. Like it was very,
it was very like
very close.
I think you were training your team at the time.
I
Like
was training my team. We had our sign installed already with our old name. We had our awning ordered. And I literally like called the awning company and I was like, stop printing, like, stop, don't put the name on it, And I had called them, like, they were hours away from putting the name on the awning and it would have cost me another $7,000 to
yeah.
replace it. So, I mean, I pivoted just in time. So, in hindsight, I'm thankful that if that was going to happen, that I could pivot at that time period because it wasn't as costly as it could have been. And also, I'm grateful that my name ended up being the Wine Spa because that's so much um, better.
Well, it just kind of
for
opens up
growth.
like the opportunity to either like have multiple locations or franchise it or whatever it looks like at that stage of the game, which it would have been a little bit more challenging if it was I had the Willamette
Yeah.
wine.
Yeah. And nobody can even say Willamette. So
No.
if you're not from Portland or Oregon, you don't know that word. It's a weird word. So
Yeah,
it's like it worked out.
it all totally worked out. Love it. So one last question. You haven't, have you been open November, December, January, February, March? So 5 months. So not even 6 months. Is there anything kind of looking back that is like, oh, I wish I would have known that? Or do you feel like it all kind of rolled out
Yeah.
easily?
I I wish that I would have known that to do facials, you cannot have carpet in your rooms. That was a last minute decision that I think you
Yeah.
and I figured out as we were
I was
in
like,
build out and they
wait.
were about to lay the carpet. So but that, little things like that, like just double checking like code and
Mhm.
legal restrictions. I wish I had known that. It wasn't too big of a deal. We figured it out, but there are times we have one couples duet massage room which has carpet, and there are times when people want to do a facial and a massage, and we can't do it in that room. So, eventually, at some point, we will put down not carpet, and so things like that. But I also feel like it all worked out. I do feel like there were so many near misses along the way, and like I just got so lucky, and I think like I just it is having trust that it's all going to work out, that it is responsible for that luck. Like my contractor, when we walked the space, he was like, "Hey, this is an older building. Like you might have asbestos. You should put in your lease that you're not responsible for asbestos remediation if we find it." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And we did, and they did find asbestos.
Right.
So that saved me, probably $40,000 in remediation. Like little things like that kept happening to me and have continued to happen to me. And so, yeah, I think I don't know that I could have foreseen any of the things that I didn't want.
Mhm.
It's all been trial and error, particularly with my team, like with, there's been a couple people that are not still on my team for various reasons. And one of those reasons is that, we have alcohol as part of our business, and you have to have people who you can trust around alcohol. So,
Right.
there's things that I'm learning still, but there's nothing that I wish that I had known. I'm glad that I did it. I hope we can make it. I hope in 5 years we're having this conversation about our, second, third location, and then the millions of dollars of debt that I will be in. but whatever. Like you just gotta say screw it, let's do it and go for it.
Like it really is pairing, logic and data. So that is like your budgeting, like all of the things you can nail down and find answers for, but then there's going to be a certain amount of things that you don't have answers for, and that's the part that requires the faith and the trust in that. But like pairing the two together is it's a good plan. Well, I so appreciate that you took the time out of your very busy schedule to chat with me and to share with my followers your journey as a new spa owner. Where can people find more information about you and the wine spa?
Yeah, so we are the Wine Spa. And you can find us anywhere on the internet at the Wine Spa PDX. Online, we are Wine Spa underscore PDX. And yeah, we post on all the things.
Excellent. Wonderful. All right. Thank you so much for joining us on the Sacred Business Mastery podcast. And you will see me next time. I'm not sure which one. It might be the our April numerology energy forecast. So stay tuned for that.